Yo, happy new moon and happy new moon in Cancer. New moon already upon us. It crept up on us last night, at least for this time zone, which is interesting because the last one kind of had the reverse. And I do think there's a lot of reaffirmations of oncoming retrograde energies that I also talked a lot more about in the last thing. But I do think Moon in Cancer and Venus also being nearby in its own orbit is a clever bit of information to tap into and to understand and recognize. I think like maybe a paramount opportunity for receptivity, because Mars and Mercury are very much in line, and that's perhaps Mars finally being in something like Virgo, something that's a little bit more organized in its outlets, and intentional maybe in its outlets. Is a plotting Mars, is a planning Mars, is a well-researched Mars, is a very well-intentioned Mars, and not just kind of like all over the place. And that's also true. Maybe giving new sights to directional qualities of where it is that we want to spend our energy or our time or our focus and things of that nature. But so I don't know, I'm gonna just use some other some other of my favorite decks to see what else can be offered in this two-part story of what will close this month and send us to new energies. I am curious. Very different than my normal go-to. I'm into it. They also kind of feel like circus tarp or like waterproof canvas, and that seems like a resilient quality to have in this kind of water sign and moisture of a moon. Okay. All right, and so we party on, much like we are hanging out together, and the cards are in between us. We're gonna take 3 deep breaths together, and again, take hold of this wonderful opportunity for receptivity with the moon and Venus and all of the information it has to spare. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. I really hope that was 3. I kind of lost count. Okay, I kind of lost count, and I also like felt a lot of receding, which is very much, and then like myself and I know other people who kind of go into like hermit modes at certain points in time. I feel that kind of energy, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean a lack of will. That can mean time to recharge or time to recuperate or time to clarify, really. Sometimes we have so much will, and we really have to learn how to direct it and initiate with it. Speaking of initiations with its... Oh, I love that. The Chariot came up last time too. But both of these have come up actually for me. The Chariot has come up before, yes. And it's funny because as much as we may want this, or I feel like this comes up when we are asking for direction or like specific yay or nay kind of things, and it's really just about the momentum and directive momentum. It isn't a yay or nay per se, but it is just like this beautiful hot air balloon, an elegant bouncing around in space, with possibility and catching the wind and sort of taking opportunity and embracing and exploring and and it's on these clouds too. Let's go maybe following through with thought processes and sort of investigating those all the way down, because clouds is still air, that's still thought, that's still a form of carrying information, or a form of carrying, it's a conduit to information. If water is the information, air is a method through which it travels. Like the many methods or apps with which we communicate, as if there's not enough. And that's general zeitgeist, right? Bottom of the deck, general zeitgeist. And the Hanged Man, because I just wanted to see what else came with it. Hanged Man, but like inverted. And it's beautiful. It's in this like wonderful spotlight. And the funny thing about that position is it's a very Ace of Swords energy, and in a literal way, you're lengthening the spine, you're relieving a lot of pressure. He's also beyond air. Like, it's interesting that this has an air element and this kind of has this anti-gravity element. How do we get beyond or above the clouds, above or beyond the thoughts of doubt, above or beyond thoughts of past, thought of anything that does weigh you down? I mean, anytime Cancer comes around, I feel like this Cancer and Venus relationship, like Cancer, Moon, and Venus nearby relationship, maybe will instigate a weighty feeling of past elements, of memories, of how weighty memories are, but can only really be measured, it can't even really be measured in length, can only really be measured in emotion. Hold on to the memories that make you feel light, and find the lightness in the ones that still feel heavy. That sounds easier said than done. In times of grief, for instance, what a heavy feeling. But when you allow yourself to take that memory lane to positive memories, there are glimmers of like the sun shines brighter and things are momentous and pure and good. There are still instances of that, and it's finding maybe the gratitude in the experience, it's finding the truth in the experience, maybe re-exploring the emotional attachment to it. And in a lot of ways, like it in like a very baseline way, like the ways in which we cloud our vision with like this is all that's possible, and the reality of the elevation beyond that, of the weightlessness, the understanding and proving to yourself that you can do anything, which is something that I've learned to teach myself time and time again, with things that scare me and things that challenge me and things that make me nervous, because that also makes me really excited sometimes. And I think some of the most incredible experiences in my life have been things that I've been terrified of, and maybe so scared and misunderstanding of, not misunderstanding in a bad way, but like I didn't understand it. Those were the things, those were the challenges that I had to face head on, and ultimately found as sort of blissful disattachment from that fear itself, which is in and of itself kind of a gift. There's the Three of Cups, the Ten of Swords, the Ace of Pentacles. Interesting. Oof. Okay. Not to Ten of Swords being the center. I can't say everybody is having a terrible time, but with all of these retrogrades, I think perhaps maybe a lot of us will anticipate the worst. And we'll find reasons to blame that instead of, taking accountability, for sure. It's a fun joke to say, yada yadas and Gatorade, but it is also asking for analysis. A lot of these things are also, again, opportunities. You don't have to view it as a gift, but it's an opportunity to make something out of nothing, or, prove yourself wrong or prove yourself right. Again, some of the coolest shit I've done is because it just was kind of an experiment. But the Ten of Swords, I think, is maybe more an expectation of like shit's going to go wrong, and the Ace of Pentacles following that is maybe finding the gift of, again, everything that I've been kind of talking about, and relieving yourself of weighty perceptions of self, weighty emotions with the past, clouded vision because of it, clouded perceptions. Let's not bring that to the newest, best version of ourselves. Yes, it is a part of it, but it does not have to come along. And the three, going back into what I said at the beginning too, initiations with these intentions, initiations of what those thoughts can actually do, because a lot of those long written processes of pain that we kind of put ourselves through in a lot of situations of like, but I can't do that, but I can't do that, but I can't do that. These are the opportunities where you're going to have to tell yourself you can. And this is the level of support and the group with which that thinks is possible. It's an energy that exists inside you. Maybe those characters are your, own ancestral parliament in your, astral projection journeys. Maybe it's your best friends. Maybe it's, the people that hype you and that you celebrate with. Maybe it's the versions of you that are finally coming together to allow space for each of them. Like if one of them is an idea and an inspiration, and one of them is your doubt and your, you can't have that, you can't like that's not something you can actually do, you're never gonna make it through school, whatever it is. And maybe the other one is jealousy of or envy of people that have succeeded, and why can't you have this thing, this comparison sort of entity, this comparison goblin or demon or whatever. I mean, I won't say demon, I won't call them that. Let me not profane demonic energy like that. Goblin's fair. But all of those emotions or versions of yourself that speak in that manner to you, that monologue narrate whatever they're doing throughout your experiences. They don't go away. We cannot kick them out. The answer is not to vote them off the island. Their names are fear and shame and guilt, and they're afraid and want to be heard and listened to, just like any spirit, just like any ghost, just like any haunted ground. Not that we're all haunted ground, but maybe. But when you allow for that space, then suddenly your you know, that envy and that doubt can understand that they're actually both very similar and hurting and can find relation, and the inspiration can, you know, find understanding in that union and understand that those two are just vulnerable other versions of me. How can I hold space for it? And that's also how we can navigate the outside world. But we don't know how to navigate that within ourselves first. Most people don't. That's not really something we're taught. So that's something that I think is a really powerful thing to explore this time. It's going to come in handy. And with all of these retrogrades again upon us, I'm sure people around us are going to be going through it. And are we going to be gusts of wind that crash their chariot? Or, you know, just like we don't want anybody else to be that, how can we all rise above that kind of smog and find an elevation in light, much like this hanged man? That exists almost in blissful contrast to what has been before. It's very stark, it's very different. I think, again, both of these moons and the timings that they've been has been and is going to continue to be changes almost in the blink of an eye. But we can have a shitty Ten of Swords kind of time, or we can send that energy through the Chariot into the Three of Pentacles and allow it to radiate into an Ace of Pentacles kind of gift. Pentacles are also very grounding, and for all of this being very cerebral, earthy, atmospheric, spacey energy, stay grounded. Stay very grounded. Find things that feel good in your body, that feel like a good utterance in your body, and that feel steady and stabilizing. And consider yourself, stay consistent with yourself. But because I think that's a very good counter to that kind of energy. Energy that is too narrow in scope needs to breathe, needs to sort of relax and release. Much like, you know, our bodies do in those kind of situations too. So given all of this air energy, remind yourself of what it feels like to be in your body and what it feels like to be in your body when it's good. So that your mind can remember that and hold on to that too, rather than get lost in the abyss of what ifs and how-tos. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, but it sounded really good. Okay, let's see what the carrier has to say. I'm only going to pull one, and then I'll pull numbers. You. Five of Wands. Eight of Pentacles. Powerful potential of creation with the Five of Wands to be clearing. I think the Eight of Pentacles or coins or whatever these are, is very grounded in body and emotion. And I think the past is more like stars in the sky. They're more like they're like berries on a branch, but it's memory, it's thought, it's past, and it's I mean, being stars in the sky or berries on a branch, they come and they go. Like, they're always there, but it comes and it goes. We don't always see it. Or, you know, berries on a branch, it's, you know, it will fall off, it'll ripen, it's cycles of. And so we can hold on to memories. Like, I think when we say let go, it's sort of this obliteration fantasy. Because I don't know, our society has a fetish for breaking things. But it can exist in thought throughout without that physical presence too. And sometimes that's even more, I mean, maybe not sometimes. I think that can be much more nourishing and much more pervasive and lasting, in the way that it's no longer burdensome. Like, it's still very much a solid, tangible thing, but it doesn't exist as a weight anymore. It does, however, exist as an interest and as, with these pentacles in the water, like a token and a memory. And the others, I mean, even with flights of birds leaving, it's cherishing memories and also allowing them to float and allowing them to move and almost be as organic too. Like, we suffocate things and then expect them to live, and that's not how anything works. Living or non-living, you know, we suffocate ideas sometimes, or we suffocate love, and it strangles its ability to grow. Are we suffocating our own memories, maybe our own like addiction to what the past was or what could have been? And that is where we find weight, rather than aligning with possibility, much like these bottom two are very much giving me the vibe of. This is the Five of Wands. There's entirely different flight patterns, though, which also, fives are the chamber of doors. It's many possibilities and potential for reflections. Don't fall for inversions. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to know. But that's also because I think we feel so rushed to make decisions. So again, Mars and Virgo, take your time, and see what it feels like. Again, your body will always know. I can't tell you how many times it has proved me safe in the moment, or led me to a point of power in a moment, with a moment, because for all the currents that exist, this is the most honest one. When you learn how to listen to it. This isn't necessarily honest with us. This is kind of wild sometimes, not gonna lie. But for all of the reflections, for the reflections in this pond, there are 2 birds that are following it and 3 that are in their own unison. So that's, the reflection is maybe often where everybody else is going. Sometimes the things that we're led to believe are mirages and misleadings. So I think this is a really powerful time to like go with what you feel, yes, but like also lead with your heart, not your mind, and like trust yourself. Don't be swayed by the masses. Don't be swayed is like the perfect thing. Don't be swayed, not even by the masses. Don't be swayed by family. Don't be swayed by friends. It's very easy to, even in, times of sobriety or what have you, like, not want to and be set on that decision, and then, you go out with somebody and they're like, oh, come on, but why? Da, 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 da. Or like, just push a little bit, and that's enough to kind of not challenge yourself or not question it or what have you. Sometimes that's the little ways that we please outside of ourselves, and that's a really common example that I could think to give you. The things in this water, in both of them, like its faces, its eyes, its people we've met, people we want to be, person we want to be. Ironically, you'll get more clarity out of staring into the darkness of the water than staring into the reflections. At least that's what I'm being given here. Don't get me wrong, I have seen some incredible things both ways, but new moon is also dark moon to some degree. And I'm not one to shy for looking at the dark spots. Shadows always catch my eye. But I do think that's not something we're conditioned to look at. Everything's so high contrast. Okay, he looks me in the eye. All right, numbers we will breathe with. Much like there are cards in between us. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Interesting. There's a different alignment of the definition of spirit and purpose, or goals, and like mind goals and heart goals, like intention goals, and like the things that we've gone after for stability, safety, and the things we've gone after for fulfillment. Two very different things. There's a different aligning happening. There's a unison, or at the very least a conversation. I hope these things brush up against each other for you, so that you can get some serious clarity. That's funny. 9 of Hearts, Jack of Hearts, Jack of Clubs, 9 of Clubs, and a 5 of Diamonds to boot. The 9s was the thing that came up before. this is almost like a dissection of it. So again, flashback to the last one, but this is a dissection of it. If we were to split those things in two, and investigate on a microcosmic level what those exist as, which is, I think, again, this kind of period of time that we'll be going into, where it's almost like a side quest or a side bubble that actually loops around and like leads to a whole other level entirely. Does that make sense? The Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Clubs meeting is also more of a back-to-back. It's, again, the alignment of like a sensual, loving energy and a more maybe passionate energy, like the version of you that woos and wines and dines meets the version of you that excites and vibrates, and I couldn't think of a better word, but that's the word that came to me. But the Jack of Clubs is very, very different characters, but they are very much each and of part of you, and part of ourselves. The Nine of Hearts is a spiral inward to investigate those things. It's very much the personalities that the Three of Cups was talking about. Is it breaking down chords note for note, maybe? Like, and that's very true too. Like, this isn't just a story, it's a resonance. This isn't just a word, it's a resonance. And that's a very way to microscopically break down the things that we say to ourselves. What does it feel like in your body when you say things like you normally do? I don't know, what do I say often when I say party on? I don't know, when I say I'm weird, when I say I'm careful about saying I'm crazy, because I don't like the way that resonates in my body necessarily. That's definitely one, because that's not necessarily the truth. Or, you know, like if you call yourself fat, or if you call yourself, oh, that's one thing that, but if you call your body one thing, you know, consider the way that it's resonating in that moment with your body. Just like we should consider our mouths and the way that that resonates with the people that we're around, and not just ourselves, but start with yourself, because that clarifies a lot. For as much as that may look like a fear of silence, I think ultimately becomes a new kind of hum or tune, or a new resonant frequency, a new love song, a new beat, a new rhythm, a new melody, but a new tune to stride in. And I think that can be kind of a superpower and an elevating in this time. Finding your own rhythm, wading in your own water, and without all of the worry and the questioning what people think about it, or why, because none of that really freaking matters now, does it? Because nobody's actually really thinking about that anyway. They're all thinking about themselves. They're all thinking the same thing about themselves. What a funny truth. Like, if we were to hear everybody's inner monologue and they were like, oh my god, sounds like somebody's looking at me. Oh my god, do they smell me? Oh my god, da 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 da. Nobody notices, because they're all worried about themselves. Perhaps. But worry about the many versions of yourself and figure that shit out. I have before too, and understood that some emotions or thoughts that I had had a different name and needed to be called that in order to really quell their fears. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They've all said the same thing. I love you, I appreciate you. Happy cards, happy life. Love you, appreciate you. Happy new moon, happy new mind, happy new moment to change your mind. And I hope that even if you don't, you know exactly why. Until next time.